Hello to everyone. We will start this conference right now. Dear citizens, dear guests, and dear colleagues, today is an important day for the future of European citizens and the whole world. After 3 years of hard censorship, I am very pleased that we have an opportunity to discuss the problems with World Health Organization in this Parliament. We want to start a public discussion and public action with our citizens. The World Health Organization is demanding that all countries surrender authority to declare pandemics and procure so-called vaccines into their hands. Unfortunately, today there are very few of products that we can truly call vaccines. Most of them are pharmaceutical products without any proven effectiveness that can be classified as vaccine. When we look at the donors of World Health Organization, the Gavi Alliance, also known as Vax Alliance, the Gates Foundation, Sanofi, and others, if we hand over the power to declare pandemics and procure vaccine to the World Health Organization, we can expect a rapid change from the rhythm of any epidemics every 2 years to a rhythm of 1 epidemic per month. We can expect a shift from the von der Leyen's current 11 doses of vaccine per each EU citizen to a very likely 60 to 90 doses per each person in the European Union. We can almost certainly expect obligatory vaccination or even of unborn children, save the others. From their perspective in the future of the world, I believe that is a great danger for the world's population. In this way, we do not leave our destiny in the hands of the World Health Organization, but in the hands of these who control it, the owners of pharmaceutical mega companies. Cycles of new pandemic campaign and so-called vaccination are ideal for population control in every sense. In terms on repressive restriction, on freedom of movement, the right of work, freedom of speech, freedom of choice, on other fundamental rights, but also as a perfect tool for regulating the size of the world population in the future. For this reason, China's great affection for the World Health Organization is not surprising. To this day, China continues to censor its social media platform TikTok when negative discussion about the World Health Organization appear. They deleted my speech, which was viewed over 4 million times in just 1 day. Even the Facebook, the well-known leader in censorship, no longer forces such censorship. If we want to avoid this highly probable dark scenario, we must make an effort to raise awareness as of many citizens as possible and prevent leaving the health and lives of citizens in the hands of private pharmaceutical companies, whose real owners are actually unknown. No one knows who is the real owner of pharmaceutical companies. We know that always BlackRock, Vanguard is owner of everything, but who is behind of BlackRock and Vanguard? Today, I was much softer than usual, but we must be aware that this problem requires the strongest possible resistance in Europe and even the whole world. Thank you for your attention, and I wish you a productive conference and the start of public initiative for better tomorrow of all of us. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Sorry, because I'm French and you know my accent it will be not so well. But first of all, I would like to thank Mislav Kolokuzik and his team for organizing this event. My dear parliamentary colleagues, the international experts, and also Frederic Baldan. This is the man who is demanding the removal of the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, and is here, and we can applaud him. The management of the COVID crisis has been causing surprising decision-making at national, European, and global level for more than 2.5 years. With the lack of transparency and active cooperation with Big Pharma have been the hallmark of our institution, which have not hesitated to flout our individual and collective freedoms in the name of the safety of all and the fight against the virus. It is to be feared that with an international treaty on pandemics, which is moreover legally binding, our member states will be dispossessed of their sovereignty in terms of health, and that aberrant and unfair measures, such as the suspension of unvaccinated caregivers, be perpetuated. Throughout the past year of the COVID Commission has met, the elements that will remain in our minds are also the repeated refusals of the main players to respond to our invitation, like WHO President Tedros was among those who refused to intervene. The COVID Commission was unable to summon her, like Mr. Bourla, the CEO of Pfizer, or Ursula von der Leyen. The 5th of June, the World Health Organization has announced that it will use the European Union Digital COVID Certificate to launch our global digital certification system thanks to a historic partnership to strengthen global health security, according to its director, which states that the future system should help facilitate mobility and protect citizens around the world against current and future threats to health, including pandemics. But who asked that? This global organization therefore tacitly validates the failure of the European Union in terms of management of the pandemic and vaccination policy, with a flagrant lack of transparency, conflicts of interest and draconian measures linked to the health pass. Transferring this power to the WHO is tantamount to creating a sort of world health government, dispossessed states of their sovereignty and further alienating citizens from decision makers. In this management of a pandemic, the state remains the best level to adapt its measures to real situation without falling into the ease of generalized draconian measures, such as confinement, of prohibition of access to certain public places, which are not always justified. We are opposed to the establishment of this global governance, the tools of which will have significant consequences of the private lives of citizens who are increasingly subject to the draconian measures imposed by unelected technocrats in globalized structures. Thank you again to be there. Thank you. We need you, and because we're keeping this fight, and thank you again to be there.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much to all of you for being here. I have to tell you that 2 years and a few months ago, when we started to express our public concerns about the digital COVID certificate and the fact that our rights as individuals, as well as MEPs, were severely violated, we did not expect that our message is going to travel all across the world multiple times. Because when we had the first press conference, a few hours later after we placed the conference online, we received hundreds, if not thousands, of emails every day from people, from elected officials, from non-governmental organizations, from judges, from prosecutors, from journalists, all of them telling us that they shared the same concerns as us, but they did not realize that there are some public voices from a high-level authority, I would say, to express or to share the same concerns as them. When we started that press conference and then all the activities that we've done together afterwards, we realized that actually people all across the world are hungry, are thirsty for freedom. They want their own officials to be accountable and to respond in front of the public. So the alternative that was presented to us with this pandemic, this was the best opportunity for some elites that are not elected by anybody, who are not accountable to anybody, to pretty much hijack, day by day, month by month, year by year, more and more of our rights, more and more of our assets, because we see that happening right now in many countries. You saw what happened in Canada, for example, when the truckers protested against Trudeau. He ordered that their bank accounts be blocked, and that happened. And at that point, we did not even have, they did not even have in Canada, the digital currency. Imagine what will happen when on your phone you will have the digital wallet, the digital currency, the digital vaccination certificate. So we saw what happened. And now just imagine in your worst case scenario what will happen if we allow the WHO to have so much power over our states, over our governments, our elected officials, and even over our judiciary. Because over the years, over the centuries, I would say, when the modern state was developed, we had the so-called separation of power in the state. You had what we have, the executive power, legislative power, and the judicial power. And the reason why the power was split among three different powers in the state was that the individual rights of every person be protected, be safeguarded. So in case the executive power or the legislative power is abusing your rights, you can go in front of the judicial power or the constitutional court to challenge a law or to challenge an administrative decision. Now imagine what would happen if all of this decisional power would be passed over to WHO. Can they stay in court? Can the head of WHO justify his decision, for example, to proclaim a pandemic across the world in front of a judge? Because they can't right now. So the biggest threat that we are facing right now is a threat to our national sovereignty, to the supremacy of our constitutions, and implicitly, unfortunately, to our fundamental rights. Because if all of these powers that were granted through our constitutions to our national institutions or authorities will be handed over to a global institution that is not accountable to anybody, who is led by people who are not elected by us as citizens, then we are done with our rights. Because they can easily just pass a decision, or whatever you want to call it, to declare a pandemic. Once that is declared, the governments can impose draconian restrictive measures, and you will not be able to challenge that. In Romania, for example, the country that I proudly represent here, during the pandemic there was not an official document, an official act released, submitted by any Romanian governmental agencies to declare in Romania a pandemic. So there were people challenging the pandemic in court, and the government came and said, well, there's a press release from WHO, and based on that press release that says, well, as of tomorrow there's going to be a pandemic, we behaved in a certain way. So imagine a press release played the role of implementing or calling something a pandemic. And we did not even have the treaty that they are talking about. So I'm glad that all of you are here today. I'm looking forward to sharing with all of us and with all the Europeans your insights. And I'm looking forward to working with you, not only to support all the initiatives that you have, but also to make people of Europe aware that in 2024, in the month of June, for the Europarliamentarian elections, they have a very clear option and choice to make. Freedom or tyranny. Democracy or lack of democracy. Transparency or lack of transparency. And as I said at the beginning of our press conferences, the difference between democracy and tyranny is very simple. When you know everything about your government, that is democracy. When the government knows everything about you, that is tyranny. So let's fight together to maintain democracy in Europe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, my dear colleagues, my dear guests. As always, this is one of our many events. I am very honored to be with you here today. And I get the impression that with every passing year, the WHO is becoming less and less about health and medical science and more about politics and lobbying. Less about health policies and more about selling and promoting certain products made by pharmaceutical companies, most notably vaccines. WHO has failed humanity in COVID crisis and must be held accountable. They have trampled on human rights and medical ethics and behaved more like public relation agency for those pharmaceutical companies. WHO is corrupt, and it is more corrupt the higher in hierarchy in the organization structure you go. Many of the employees, including top jobs, are linked to private interests following the principle of revolving doors. As you know, WHO is heavily dependent on private donors, such as Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Bloomberg Foundation, and Rockefeller Foundation. And of course, WHO is also dependent on big pharmaceutical companies that have a seat on governance board of Gavi. Gavi is another top financial contributor to WHO. Their contribution, the private contributors, and their influence shadows hundreds of member countries, especially the ones in Africa, Asia, and South America. Also, since we are in European Parliament, one of the top financial contributors to the WHO is European Commission, the so-called government of European Union. The behavior of this European Commission in COVID crisis can be described as corruption, incompetence, and disaster. Can you imagine that the one person who arranged everything with Pfizer and also other pharmaceutical companies, Ursula von der Leyen, the president of the Commission, was protected by her political group and never came to a committee hearing to answer some very important questions, questions that deal with billions of euros and hundreds of millions of citizens. No, she never came to that hearing. She avoided it. But then they said, all right, there won't be any hearing in the COVID committee, the special committee. We'll make our own hearing in the bureau, in the presidency of the parliament. But in the end, not even that happened. Not even this tiny piece of smoked and mirrored transparency happened. So, not even this event that was supposed to happen behind closed door ever happened. Is this democracy? Is this transparency? It is not. It is not. And the final report of the COVID committee even failed to report in a proper way on this first step of problems that we had during COVID crisis, and this is transparency. Even on that first step, it failed to deliver. This pandemic treaty that we speak of is nothing more than an attempt by WHO to get more power, more control, and more money. They want to take health policy from sovereign nations to a centralized body, globalist, bureaucratic body, technocratic body. That's not what we want. That's not what I want. This is not why I am here. I want these policies to remain and to be made at home in our national institutions. I fully support the European Citizens' Initiative, freedom and trust. due to its democratic, legal, and awareness-raising implications. And finally, we must not give up our sovereignty to non-elected, highly corrupt, criminal, private international organizations that act solely for financial gain with every passing year. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming today. And thank you, Misla, for really putting in the work and making this happening today. And I really will have to say, I am so very honored to be here with 7 very brave citizens who came here today to launch an initiative for a European Citizens Initiative, an initiative which will hopefully be accepted by the EU Commission, although I don't really hold my breath, to be quite frank, but I seriously hope we will be able to do that. These 7 citizens are so incredibly brave because they stand up against this despicable attempts by the globalitarian misanthropists to strip us of freedom, democracy, and the rule of law. They simply say no to the attempts of granting an unelected body governing powers. They simply say no. And that's what we all should do, because this will end if we simply say no. And that's what we're here to do today. Because an unelected body like WHO, who is controlled and run by multi-billionaires, should never be allowed to act in place of a democratically elected government. Never, ever. In democracies, ladies and gentlemen, it is government of the people, by the people, for the people. And any government of anywhere in the world who disregards this fundamental principle of democracy by supporting this unprecedented power grab by WHO is an anti-democrat demonstrating nothing but his utter contempt for the people. And these 7 brave citizens, they will not stand for this, and neither will we. I will expose anyone, whether it's a member of a government in a member state or a government around the world, or a member of parliament in the European member states or parliaments around the world, who do not respect the people and do not respect democracy. I will see to it they will be exposed. Each and every one of them, by name. Because guess what? There's elections coming up, and the people might be interested in who is responsible for the abolition of democracy. So, we are here today to tell you, WHO globalitarian misanthropists, we are here today to tell you, you picked this fight, you wanted this fight, well, guess what? You've got it. Let's fight. Because these brave citizens, my colleagues and I, we will not tire to fight you every step of the way. These brave 7 citizens and millions more around the world, these are the people you will have to reckon with from now on. Because we are millions around the world. It is you that is the small fringe minority. You are the ones who do not have the right to dictate to the people what they want and what they don't want. So, take it from me, take it from us, take it from these 7 citizens who gathered here today. Take it from the millions and millions of people around the world. we will bring you down, and we will not tire until we have done just that. So brace yourselves. We are here, and the fight is on. So let's commence with the fights. Why don't we? Thank you.